Alright guys, and welcome back to the channel, and today I will be giving you my full card predictions and breakdown for UFC 299 this weekend in Miami, and it is an absolutely stacked card. I cannot wait for it, and we are going to go right ahead and dive into the very first early prelim of the night, which is Joanne Wood, formerly Joanne Calderwood, versus Marina Moroz. Now, this is a rematch from a fight that took place back in 2015 where Marina submitted Joanne by armbar. Now, I'm not super excited for this rematch. This is not going to be a great fight or opener. I don't see Joanne Wood being a particular threat in any one area in this match. She's just not that good. She's had a lot of losses in her last few fights, and she's getting older. I believe she's 38 years old, and I just don't see her being that much of a threat to Moroz in any area, really, outside of possibly out-grappling her, holding her against the cage, and maybe getting her down. I think Marina is going to be the cleaner, sharper, more youthful striker in the center. I think she keeps this fight on the feet and outstrikes Joanne to a pretty clean decision. Moving on, we are going up to CJ Vegara versus Vs Almabayev, and this could be a pretty good little scrappy fight here. I am going to side with Almabayev for the grappling and the jiu-jitsu. He has a very high-level jiu-jitsu game. He has a lot of submissions on his record, and I do think that he gets CJ Vegara down at some point and submits him. I think the first round could be competitive. It could be back and forth. They could be testing each other out. I see Azu possibly landing an early takedown on him, but I think by the second round, Azu will control CJ Vegara enough on the ground, possibly take his back and choke him out, but I do see Almabayev picking up this victory by submission over CJ Vegara. Sliding on up, we have the debuting killer, which could possibly be the new Francis Ngannou monster of the heavyweight division. We will see. From Cuba, we have Robelis Despaigne versus the potato, Josh Parisian. And this is a simplistic, easy setup to get Despaigne a big debuting win in the UFC to put him on the map. Josh Parisian is just not good. He's not good anywhere. His striking is bad. His defense is bad. His cardio is bad. And we don't know a lot about Despaigne just yet, but from the highlights that I've seen on YouTube, this guy is a one-punch killer. Now, of course, he's fighting tomato cans on the regional scene in his home country, so that's not going to tell us a whole lot, but I do think his size and his power is going to be a massive factor. He is 6'7" with an 87-inch reach, and I think he touches the chin of Josh Parisian early and puts him out cold flat, and we have the beginnings of the next possible Francis Ngannou in the heavyweight division. Moving on up, we have a borderline coin flip fight of the night with Felipe Lins versus Ion Hothead Cutelaba. And this is kind of a tough fight because Felipe Lins is not that great. He's kind of a plodding boxer. And Ion Cutelaba is the most hot-headed. When it comes to fight IQ, his is borderline in the dumpster. I call him the 205 Cody Garbrandt, because his fight IQ is just not there. He's got nasty power in his hands. He's very aggressive to a fault. He's overly aggressive sometimes, and that costs him in a lot of his fights where he simply cannot calm down, pick his shots, and approach the range in a methodical way. Now, Felipe Lins is not that much of a threat on the feet, but he will come forward, he will throw shots, he will walk you down. But I am going to give Cutelaba a chance in this fight and say that he catches Felipe early with a big shot. Now, if Cutelaba cannot calm down, if he gets too hot-headed in this fight, he could walk into a big shot from Lins and wind up getting TKO'd in classic Cutelaba fashion. But if he can calm down the Cody Garbrandt in his soul, that fiery hothead that makes mistakes, he does have the power to possibly pick up this win and knock Lins out. So we're going Ion Cutelaba by KO early in the first round. Hopefully he can calm down and keep it together. Then next fight, we have Michel Pereira versus Michael Oleksiejczuk. And this is a pretty interesting fight. Michel Pereira, is very dynamic, very light on the feet, moves a lot, dances a lot, does a lot of bouncing. And that cost him early in his UFC career because he did so much moving and so much acrobatics that it would actually tax his cardio. His gas tank would absolutely shit out in the early beginnings of the fight, and then he would just be a duck in the water. But he has seemed to fix these cardio issues. He's a little more methodical and approached with how he throws his strikes. He doesn't do too many acrobatic things anymore. He doesn't do all this crazy movement that's gassing himself out. And I do think that he will be dynamic enough and pick his shots enough in this fight to outstrike Michael Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk is pretty much a one-dimensional, straightforward boxer. He comes forward with a lot of head bobbing, throws a lot of shots, but I think Michel Pereira will be just slick enough in the movement and his athleticism to get the job done. I see him possibly knocking out Michael Oleksiejczuk, but if not, I think he will outstrike him to a clean decision win. But we're going to go with Michel Pereira by second round TKO. Moving on, we are at Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips, and this is a very interesting close fight. Pedro Munoz is an absolute dog, a fantastic boxer, great jiu-jitsu, just a solid, overwhelming fighter in the division. And, Pedro Munoz is a veteran. He's been around a long time. And Kyler Phillips is a super dynamic, very fast, very slick striker on the feet. He moves a lot. He kicks a lot. He cuts weird angles. And I think it's a very interesting, close fight. But I am going to go ahead and side with Phillips for the decision. I think his movement, his kicks, the way he uses his range, the way he touches and goes is going to be a little much for Pedro. But if Kyler cannot get that movement going, if he starts to settle down, if he starts to get stationary, Pedro Munoz could outbox him in the pocket and wind up stealing a 29-28 split decision. It could be close. This fight could go either way. But I am going to side with Kyler Phillips with the dynamic athleticism, the dynamic striking to get it done at range from the outside against Pedro Munoz. Moving on, we are going to Mateus Gamrot versus RDA, Rafael dos Anjos. And sadly, I feel like this is the end of the road for RDA. He's getting older. He's up there in age. He's just not able to put it together like he used to. The striking, the power's not fully there anymore. His grappling and his BJJ is not fully there anymore. And he's just kind of starting to hit a wall. And I think Mateus Gamrot is an absolute cardio machine. His grappling is a problem. His pace is a problem. He just does not stop coming. And you look at RDA, he's getting up there in age. He's almost 40 now. And Mateus Gamrot is just the younger, hungrier, faster fighter, and I think Gamrot is going to put a pace and pressure on RDA and just break him over the course of 15 minutes. And I see Mateus Gamrot picking up a pretty easy 30-27 unanimous decision on RDA. We love you, RDA. You're a sport. You're a veteran of the game. You have much respect from the MMA fans, but I think this is where we see the final endings of his career closing out. Next up, we have Caitlin Cerminara. This is a new name. She got remarried. It used to be Chukagian versus Macy Barber. And I see Macy Barber just easily winning this fight. Caitlin's got pretty good striking at range. She does not have any knockout power. She doesn't have any pop in her shots, but she's a pretty good volume striker on the feet, on the outside. But Macy Barber is picking up a lot of wins. She's starting to find her groove with her striking and her grappling, and I see Macy Barber pretty much just overwhelming Caitlin, pressuring her, getting in her face, hitting her with the harder shots, and possibly out-grappling her. I think this is a pretty easy win for Macy Barber, and I am picking her here by decision to beat Caitlin Cerminara, which is so weird to say because she's been Chukagian for years. But we will go ahead with Macy Barber by decision. Next up, now this is a fight I'm very excited for. Curtis Blaydes versus the upcoming and pretty much streaking Jailton Almeida. Now, I have not been that impressed with Jailton Almeida in his UFC run so far. You know, he's got fantastic BJJ. He has fantastic grappling. He's a big guy, but we have not seen him truly tested yet from a top 5 level fighter. Yeah, he took a lot of guys down in his first few UFC fights and submitted them right away, but he had nobody that could resist and test his wrestling. He had nobody that could test him on the feet. And even in the Derek Lewis fight, I mean, that was almost an embarrassing performance because he took Derek down so many times. Derek was literally a walrus out of the water. Had nothing for Jailton off his back whatsoever. And Jailton just laid on top of him for 5 rounds, could have finished him, didn't do it, and just sat on him. And the difference here is Curtis Razor Blaydes is an excellent striker on the feet. He's got power in his hands, and he is a fantastic wrestler. He's the perfect, well-rounded package in test to put Jailton's grappling and his chin on that line to try to test it to see if he really is the next up-and-coming problem. And I don't think he is. I think Curtis Blaydes will expose Jailton in this fight. I think he will be the better striker on the feet. I think he will crack Jailton with some shots early, and then I don't see Jailton just ragdolling Curtis Blaydes. I think Curtis's defensive wrestling will hold up. I think he will stuff the takedowns, and I actually see him taking Jailton down and TKOing him in the second round to expose from what I think is just not a very impressive fighter overall so far. So I see Curtis Blaydes just taking over early in the fight in those early exchanges, outstriking Jailton, showing that he has no striking really on the feet that much, getting him down and TKOing him for the upset. I'm pretty sure Jailton is the favorite in this fight, which, yes, he is. It's actually near even, but in the predictions on Tapology, he is the favorite. But I think Curtis Razor Blaydes is that test, and I see him beating and possibly finishing Jailton Almeida to stop the hype train. And moving up, we have a fantastic striker's delight, which is Peter No Mercy Yan versus Song Yadong. And Peter Yan, man, has had it tough in his last few fights. He has been on the wrong side of quite a controversial few decisions. He was beating Aljo in the first fight easily, then he got screwed by the DQ in the knee. Then I thought he beat Aljo in the rematch. Again, the judges are asleep. Give it to Aljo. And then I thought he beat O'Malley in that fight. And the judges are once again asleep and give it to O'Malley. So Peter Yan just cannot catch a break, but he is still dangerous. He's still an excellent striker. I don't see his skills declining that much. It's just been an unfortunate series of events for him. But Song Yadong is a fantastic, deadly, powerful striker, and I think this is such a good matchup. But I see Song being the slightly faster and more powerful striker. I think his movement will be enough. I think he will land just enough power shots on Yan to take this decision. But Yan is such a tactical, methodical striker. He has one of the best defensive guards in the UFC. Always keeps his hands up. He's always protecting his face, moving his head. He's downloading you. He's stalking you. He's figuring out your game plan. And he could do that to Song if Song is not prepared for that. But I think Song will be just sharp enough to keep it on the outside, mix up the shots, and edge Yan in those power strikes. Could be a possible split decision for Song, but if not, I'm going to go Song 29-28, unanimous decision. And moving on, we are going with Gilbert Del Reno Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena, and this is another great fight. Gilbert, a solid striker, fantastic BJJ, a great grappler, but Jack Della Maddalena is an absolute problem on the feet. Some of the best hands in the welterweight division. Great combinations, solid power. I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to beat Gilbert Burns in this fight. I don't see Gilbert taking Jack down at will. I don't see Gilbert being able to hold him down for 15 minutes. I think Jack is going to stuff any takedown attempts, and I think he easily wins the striking exchanges. But I do see Gilbert being competitive. I do see Gilbert landing some shots. I think the exchanges could be back and forth, could be pretty close in moments. but I think Jack's power and his better striking will edge out this fight, and I think he gets it done against Gilbert on the feet, picking up a pretty clean unanimous decision. All right, and moving on, we have the debuting Michael Venom Page versus Kevin Holland. And I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat, I'm not a Michael Page fan. I did not really follow him in Bellator that much. I watched some of his fights, mostly highlights, but I am not a fan of the flashy showboating style, while he's knocking out tomato cans in Bellator. And now he's here, he's in the big leagues against the big boys, and he is going to be truly tested by one of the best strikers in the division. And I love Kevin Holland. He has fantastic striking. He's got great distance management, great range, and I think Kevin Holland is going to shut the MVP hype train down early. I see his shots being straighter, cleaner, faster, more powerful, and I think Kevin Holland can get the job done by outstriking MVP and showing him that there are levels to this game. Now, could MVP do a lot of showboating and touching from the outside and maybe pick up a close, controversial split decision? Yeah, possibly, but I think Kevin Holland, I think the fundamentals are going to get this done here, and I just see him outstriking MVP and showing him there are levels. You're not just going to come in here and dance around at 37, 38 years old and think you're going to win a belt. I don't see it happening. I think MVP gets shown up this weekend and Kevin Holland gets his hand raised. And moving on, we are at the co-main event of the night with Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis, and this is such a good fight. I love this fight. Dustin the Diamond, what an absolute veteran, one of the best fighters of all time, an absolute dog, a scrapper, a killer, versus the up-and-coming French-Canadian Frenchman, Benoit Saint-Denis, who has just been absolutely impressive recently. His striking, his jiu-jitsu, his pace, his cardio. And normally, I would favor Dustin in a long-term fight, a 5-round fight, because Dustin, the longer a fight goes, the better Dustin gets. That dog comes out and he starts to break people. But I think Benoit is actually good enough to hang with Dustin for those rounds. I think he will be a problem for Dustin on the feet, and I think his pace and his pressure will create problems in the first half of this fight, and I think that he actually could get Dustin down and submit him and pull off the shocker. This up-and-coming kid submitting Dustin the Diamond Poirier, who is not a top 5 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter like Charles Oliveira, who's not, Khabib Nurmagomedov. I do see that potential and that skill in this kid, and I'm going to go Benoit Saint-Denis by submission either in the second or third round on Dustin, but if not, I think he takes it on a decision, a possibly 48-47 against Dustin, maybe even a 49-46, but I think he can actually get it done. But if Dustin pulls that dog out later in the rounds, in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, he could come back and show the young buck there are levels. You're not just going to come in here and step on the veteran, and I could see Dustin pulling that off if Benoit cannot maintain the cardio and the pace for 5 rounds. But we're going to go Benoit Saint-Denis by 3rd round sub or possible decision. And moving on to the main event of the night, the rematch we've all been waiting for, Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera. And I think this is such a wonderful rematch, such a great stylistic matchup. I love Chito Vera. I don't mind Sean O'Malley, and his striking is fantastic. It's dangerous. And this is just going to be a phenomenal rematch. And in this rematch, I am going to go, like I did in the first fight, when unfortunately he got kicked in the leg, it shut his nerve off, and he could not use his foot. I still picked O'Malley in that first fight for the movement, the sharpness, the feints, and I think O'Malley can get that going and get it done in this rematch as long as he can stay away from the leg kicks and the pressure shots that are going to build from Marlon Vera as this fight goes. And we know that Marlon Vera always starts his fights off slow, which is going to be detrimental here because O'Malley is going to get those feints and that movement going early, and I think he's going to start to touch Chito up and start to take those early rounds. But by the time we hit the 3rd round, it's going to get interesting. We know Cheeto's going to pick up the pace. We know he's going to pick up the kicks. And can O'Malley avoid those leg kicks over 25 minutes? Can he avoid getting that leg cracked? Can he avoid the pressure combination shots from Vera? It is going to be very interesting to see. And I am not counting Marlon Vera out at all. I love the guy. I think he's a fantastic, deadly fighter. He's had some vicious knockouts. But I think over the course of 5 rounds, O'Malley will be smart enough with his distance, his reach, his control, and his fantastic movement to outpoint Marlon Vera and get the decision on the scorecards. And I'm going to go Sean O'Malley by decision, a possible 49-46, 48-47 on the cards, 3-2 or 4-1 against Marlon Chito Vera. I think he will take enough early rounds to get it done. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are my predictions for UFC 299. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I cannot wait for the card this weekend. Enjoy it, and we will see you with predictions for UFC 300. Take care.